It's Tesla Tuesday. I know I've got earnings today, but I thought I'd quickly do this chart anyway, start some good habits, give the people what they want and all that. So let's take a quick look here at the chart then. We've got a nice little wedge coming here, or pennant, whatever you want to call it. It's just a triangle pattern. They don't really need fancy names. It definitely looks like it wants to push over here. Obviously, most of these patterns, it's all going to depend on the fundamentals, what happens with earnings. We'll talk about that a bit at the end, but let's just deal with the technical side first. If it does break out of here, the measured move would be on my drawing tools. Probably something close to 280, as there's nice resistance historically here as well. Downside though, we've got this nice gap here. I would think a downside break would be more substantial than this diagonal trend line here. I'd definitely put the next level at 210. I've put some cash aside in case that happens. I'm a bit on the fence with how earnings are going to go. There's a few mixed bits of information, but for the most part, price still was a bit overbought here, and flows flat. So technicals definitely seem like they're waiting. Looking at the weekly chart, obviously we can still see the triangle pattern here. The measured move will be the same. It doesn't change depending on the time frame you're at. We do have a really strong resistance at 310. I'd be surprised if we got there, but sentiment does have a way with running with Tesla. But at which point I'd probably sell out some of my shares just because price would be quite far ahead of itself based on the fundamentals that it's currently putting up. Downside resistance, there's a lot of confluence in this area. But below that, you probably meet with the bull market band and then this volume shelf here. I think as well on the daily, switch back quickly, this gap fill here to the downside would also most likely line up with the bull market band. So that's pretty strong confluence at that level. So I do like that one. Definitely enter in there with some size, I think. Even if it went lower, it's still improving my DCA. The open options interest for Tesla looks a little bit more bullish than it has on the last few weeks. A lot more people seem to be aiming slightly higher, not hugely so. So they might be in the money if we get a nice pop. But if we take a look to the week after earnings, this has changed the last few days. So originally there was most people focusing on this kind of 180 level with puts, but we've seen a bit of a rise with the $300 targets here. So I mean, a lot of people are starting to have more of a bullish outlook on these earnings. Although we'll take a quick look at the expectations, and I'm still undecided. I'm not going to be swing trading this. I'm just going to trim and add depending on what happens and what the earnings call is actually like. Regarding earnings, we can see they have an estimate of 0.61 cents and then 24.38 billion. If you check out this guy called Brad on X, his name on there is Stock Market Nerd. Sorry, I had to check that because I couldn't remember off the top of my head. He does really concise write-ups for earnings on most big companies. Obviously, the data is missing because her earnings hasn't happened yet, but it makes it a lot easier if you don't like reading balance sheets and all that stuff and going back historically. It gives you the data in a nice readable format. If we look, car produced is down quarter over quarter and year over year, but delivered not so bad. So we're getting through some inventory by the looks of it. Sorry, my circles are terrible. I'll work on that. But I don't think that's necessarily an issue. Obviously, there is the expectation that we'll be beating on EPS and on profit. Where is it? So hopefully it's green. But the main thing I think is people are going to be quite forward looking with Tesla. We're going to want to see energy. Obviously, we know energy is coming in good. We want to hear about some growth plans, any scaling up they want to do, demand. We know demand's a few years out. So I think that's all good. Robo-taxi news, we're going to want to know if the date's changed or some clarification on what's happening with that, as well as full self-drive uptake and how the data piling's going. But other than that, I'm sure they'll talk about lots of other fun stuff like compute and stuff like Dojo. So we'll get quite a nice forward look on Tesla, but I don't necessarily think price is just going to be based on these car production numbers. even though they do look like they're getting a little bit better. So maybe it's the inflection point and we stop with the bad news, but we'll see. Rates are coming down as well, which will be good for Tesla. So it's pretty exciting. Hope you enjoyed this new format. Let me know if it's any better or you want anything changing. Most of the time, it won't include these earnings data points. This is just purely because obviously earnings is tonight.